the best question to start off with, John, because I had a guy in the podcast a while ago, Stephen Curry. I don't know if you've seen it, and he overcame addiction. It was an amazing episode, right? And I know this episode's kind of framed around that because that's a big part of your story. Like, but I think a really good question for someone that's in your situation is how would you describe addiction to someone to have a deeper understanding of it that doesn't have any understanding of it?
So addiction it's like a compulsive behavior, which once it really takes effect, it renders you powerless. And that means it's got to the point where your addiction, whatever it is, if it's alcohol, drugs, sex, gambling, it can even be exercise to a degree. But when it's become to the point where it's affecting your life and it's negatively affecting your relationships and how you go about business, it's affected you negatively and you can't function in a normal way,
Yeah.
basically.
I always remember when you were talking to me, it was like when we first started working together. I was doing like a stint of like sobriety and like I was telling you my sort of reasons for it, and you were just saying it's a good thing. And I always remember like, and I visualized the street when you were telling me, and you were like, you walk down the street, man, and you look on the left and there's a bookies. You look on the right, there's a van parked up loading a pub. You look on the left, there's someone vaping. You look on the right, there's like someone drinking a can of Monster. Now, like vices come in all different shapes and forms, but like we are literally like my mate was talking about a book he's reading. It's like Dopamine Nation or something. I think it's called. I can't remember the name of it, but it's like it's never been so easy to be addicted to like a vice or have something as a clutch, especially if there's things spiraling out of control in your life or things happening. But I know from obviously knowing you as well, there's levels to addiction, isn't there? There's definitely different sort of people are at different points of that journey, aren't they?
Yeah, there's definitely different degrees. And basically, all of these vices, we use them as they're coping mechanisms, right? And it's how much you grab onto these and how far you're willing to go down the hole with them. And most people have a they if they identify they might have a problem, they can manage it and they can pull away from it. It's like yourself, take a bit of sobriety time. You can go back to drinking, and it's generally it's going to be okay. That's majority of people. Then there's the other people who once you cross that threshold, there's no coming back. And I definitely fall into that class. But where once you yeah, once and best way I describe it is I burnt my off switch out, so I don't have one, so I can't start. Um, but yeah, if you look around in the world today, there's so many devices out there, and it's everything's like a quick fix, and it's trying to make you feel good, and it's trying to get you a kick. And the earlier you can identify this, to stay away from that. I know that this is leading me down a bad path. Is the better.
Yeah. When did you recognize you had the problem, mate?
I remember, this is when I was still in the military. Uh, I was having a bit of a rough time. I had a breakup with my missus at the time, and I went drinking for quite a few weeks. And when I eventually stopped, I woke up in the morning and I couldn't stop shaking, and I had anxiety, and identified then like I knew like I was drinking a lot and I was using drugs and that, but that morning, I actually went and drank, and all my negative emotions and what I was experiencing went away. And I remember then saying, "Holy shit! Like I'm I'm like an addict. I'm an alcoholic." Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Did
So
anyone
that
like,
that was early. That was when I was still in the military.
yeah.
So that's like 26, 27. Yeah.
Well, so my best mate Grant's here right now, and we were talking last night. Like, obviously, if you're with one of your, he lives in Australia now. Well, he was coming back over from Australia, and he's going back to the UK. He's kind of all over the place at the moment. But we were talking about like, we were just talking about like going on holidays and stuff when we were younger. We went on this trip when we were in like 2015, and Grant was in the army. I was in the Air Force at the time, and we went away and drank for 3 weeks, like every day. And it was like we were talking about just like we were laughing about it because it's like funny in hindsight now, man. But like at that time, I definitely was nursing like a bit of a problem that I didn't recognize as a problem. And it was we were actually laughing, saying that like we were even laughing about how we thought certain things were funny about how folk were buying like that much coke, and we were like, "Fucking hell, man! You've spent like £300 again today on coke." Do you know what I mean? And it was like, and you're like, "That's abnormal behavior, like absolutely like abnormal." But then when you're in that environment, and it's and no one in the military as well, like, and everyone's drinking around you, and everyone's partying around you, people are living that same lifestyle that you're on. Like, it's very, very easy to then just think it's normal, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Like you're a product of your environment, man. And I'd never touched drugs to the military. I was sort of against it growing up, and had some civvy mates, schoolmates who were doing it. And then as soon as I got in that environment, wanted to sort of fit in, I guess you could say. And then it was just off to the races. But yeah, man, when you're surrounded by people, it's just the norm, right? So when you identify that this is a problem, you need to break away from that. Otherwise, you're just going to stay in it. Yeah, man, you just pit yeah, man, productive environment. That's the best way to describe it. Yeah.
Yeah. And what was the like, you've kind of spoke to me about this, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but what was the turning point for you that was like, because how many times did you go through like recovery?
I went in and out of 15 rehabs, and on the 15th one, I got it.
Yeah,
The concept of surrender. I don't know if we've spoken about this a bit. Yeah.
yeah.
So that's where it turned for me. I
I
surrendered. I
talk
was done.
I talk about this all the time, by the way. Like, and this is like where I've like, and I'd heard about like you ever I think it was you who told me, is it the Surrender Project? Is it a book? I don't know if you've heard of it or
Heard of it, no. But
yeah.
I could sort of guess what it would be about.
Yeah, and it's like someone had explained it. I think it's called that. Someone told me it, but then when you spoke about it at our event last January, and I've just like I speak to people about it all the time. I go into sessions and I think about it, and I don't even apply it to. It's not even just applied to like surrendering to like overcoming a vice. It's like when I'm not in a good mindset for like a run, let's say for example, and I'm like, just surrender to it, man. Just fucking surrender to it. And then when I do that, it gets easier because when you
Yeah.
fight it, that's when it's so hard. So yeah, man. Like,
It's
what?
funny. I had at the elite race in Vegas. I was speaking to some of the blokes. There's a new guy there, and I said, "How do you feeling?" He's like, bit nervous, and it wasn't really the overwhelming idea of the event. It was the pain that we're about to experience for the 60 minutes or less. Yeah,
Yeah,
and I said, "Mate, I'll give you a bit of advice. Like, just accept it. It's only 60 minutes. You just have to accept it." And it's the surrendering acceptance, you can sort of look at it the same way. It's just like stop fighting it. Like it's gonna happen. You just got to go with it. Yeah. Just be free. And as Bruce Lee would say, like be like water, just let it go. Just stop having these negative emotions. It's gonna happen one way or another.
yeah. And I think for a lot of people, it's so easier said than done, isn't it? I think when you're talking to another elite athlete at the top of their game, and like you can give someone a frame like that, but when you're talking to someone that's like so unaware of their emotions and so wrapped up in things, and you're like just surrender to it, they're like, "What do you mean? Like, how can I do that?"
Yeah, and the surrendering, man, like I was a commander in special forces. I was 22 on my first, when I went overseas operations. Like I don't surrender. We tactically withdraw. That's what we call it. Yeah, surrendering's for pussies. Like, but when you actually understand what it means, it's powerful, and it means you
Yeah,
don't have to keep fighting.
yeah,
And like I like fighting, going after things, and achieving stuff. But this is you got to look at it's all perspective. You got to look at it as just like I'm done trying to resist against something which I'm powerless against. So
yeah. I know, because you can get so wrapped up in it, man. But I can't even imagine what that's like before a race. It must just be like, I always picture it like I remember I've watched your last few races, and I'm like, it is literally like a bunch of gladiators about to go out and just smash their way around like an event and just like take themselves to the brink of death. How are you feeling after Vegas, by the way?
yeah, I'm actually feeling okay. I just did some squats before. I could not squat, do a lunge until pretty much this morning. And as well, I haven't been like that this season, but when you do an event like that, and obviously I flew back to get back to my family, sitting on a flight for like 14 hours with
Yeah,
banged up legs is not ideal. So when I got back, my legs were swollen. I couldn't really like my shoes and my ankles are. It was hard to get shoes off. My ankles are so swollen. I had no veins in any of my legs. So that takes a little bit to come down, but I'm good now. Not sick, which is good. Usually you get that post race flu or whatever you
yeah. I've had that like three
call it.
times, man. Yeah,
Yeah, it's just that there's so much stress on the body.
Yeah,
But no, I feel good. But yeah, man, the start of those races, and even like it's sort of the modern day, or even sport is like it's a modern day sort of arena, right? Where you go and you're testing yourself against other people and spectators, and you literally got to put yourself on display in front of people who are watching. And especially this Hyrox is growing so much now. There's a lot of people who watch the live coverage.
yeah,
I don't really think about that, but I could see how it could play into effect emotionally. Yeah, knowing that what's on YouTube forever now.
yeah. No, I know that is when you put it up there, that's no coming down, man. But I've watched some of the races. I actually thought, is it Dylan that won? Me and Ailey were like that at the end because the commentator said about the shoes, and did
Yeah,
you hear about this? And basically, the commentator said that he needs to take his shoes over the lines, but it was a mistake. But everyone watching on YouTube, me and Ailey were like, "No way, no way, he's not taking his shoes. He's not taking his shoes, man." So, and
ah,
I seen he put something on his story after saying like, "I've got a text from the race official saying that I don't have to take my shoes." Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
So
yeah. In this question, in there when we did that briefing, he asked the question, and I just didn't think anything of it. And then I didn't even know he'd taken them off to like
yeah,
recently. I'm like, what's all this commotion about fucking shoes? Like, well, that's all it was. But yeah, man, for balance, I guess he took them off. Yeah, because super shoes are unstable.
yeah. What was it like going to Vegas after like 4 years of recovery? What was it like going
Mm.
to Vegas?
I'm glad I had 4 years of recovery up before I decided to get back.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, it's funny, man. Like I'm 4 years. I'm never going to be out of the woods when it comes to addiction. And I need to acknowledge that and just know if I think I'm cured, then I'm going to come unstuck. So I'm glad I had 4 years. It, all those pathways about how I used to do business and those behaviors and um, they're all still there. Like, and they're not dormant, or they're sort of dormant, but they can be easily be like rekindled and they can come back into play, right? So an example is, man, I just go to get a coffee in the morning, just at a 7-Eleven, and then I walk in and ding, 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 poker machines are going off. And I'm like, oh man, like I gambled as well. So those triggers, and I get anxiety from that still
yeah,
after this long. And if I'm not conscious of that, I could just quite easily in another time, I'll quite easily just go get a beer out of the fridge or get drinks, and then the next thing I know, I'm sitting down maybe having a punt, and then 2 days later, I'm like, what the fuck's happened? So to go back after 4 years, the first thing I did was I went to a meeting very early, an AA meeting, which I haven't been to in a long time. But such a good resource. I just went to remind myself, like you're in Vegas. I've been there multiple times with mates on the sessions, and yeah, I just had to tell myself again, but like I'm not out of this. Acknowledge it, and then just try to stay out of that life. Yeah, and when now I move differently. I don't go out at night time. I'm not, unfortunately, in cafes and stuff. There's poker machines and there's alcohol everywhere. But I've got enough tools now after so many years that I can lead myself in a better direction rather than staying in that anxiety because it could quite easily just feed itself and then I'm off to the races again and
yeah,
back in addiction.
yeah. Does anyone recognize you? I know that like the sport's growing fast, and I know like it's not A-list celebrity sort of like standard, and you have to kind of be in the sport. Does anyone recognize you at the meetings of that? Because that must be something for someone to like to see someone like I know that they might not be into the sport of that. I was just curious. I was thinking about this.
Nah, look, in America, it's very, AA and NA is very closed. So, like, when I say that, you see someone in a meeting, you don't talk about who you're seeing. It's all,
Uh, yeah,
it's, like if there wasn't A-list celebrity there, like, you don't tell people. They all protect each other because the only thing we have in common is we're addicts or alcoholics, yeah, whatever we identify as. That's what brought us together, not who we are. It's like why we're there.
yeah. I really noticed that, John, that time, the weekend that you came and spent with us in Scotland when you came over for the event. And I always remember when we hung with you, we got a session in, we were there for an event, went out for a few meals and stuff. And the thing that totally stood out for me, and I get it. Like AA is like almost like I spoke to Stephen about this as well. It's like personal development. It's almost like you're
Right,
literally
right.
upskilling yourself. And one of the things that I remember, and me and Ailey spoke about afterwards, was how honest you were. I mean, not just honest about like just life in general. I meant like how raw you were about how bad things were, and the sort of points that you got to. I know that we were kind of joking sometimes about some of the things that happened, and but in the way that like, because what really stood out to me is like you're not romanticizing who that person was. You're not kidding on. You're like, no, that I was like life was not good. And no matter how good life feels now, I need to remember that, because if I don't remember that, it's very, very easy to then fall back into the mindset. And that's the thing that really stood out for me, that like the weekend that you came was like some of the stuff you told us was like very, very vivid and like very, very like sort of, I was like, fuck, that was mad. Like just some of the points you got. I remember you said like you went to Colombia, like, and just disappeared to Colombia.
Yeah, yeah. It's I could sort of giggle about it, but it was fun until it wasn't, and then it was scary. And in AA, like it's the principles they use, the 12 steps. I remember being in a rehab and speaking with a clinical psychologist about this, and they said the steps are unbelievable. Like this, the
Yeah,
personal development you have to go
yeah,
through, and it's like make an inventory of like everyone you've hurt, and you need to go make amends for that.
yeah.
Yeah. Like you got to be humble, you got to swallow your pride, you got to go and do the right thing. Now, when I was going through the steps, I think I got to that point and I relapsed. So I never actually fully went through it. But I went a different route on my last rehab. But any addict who's gone through step work or gone through the process and had a good hard look at himself, you've got to be open and honest. And it's one of the things is you've got to those skeletons that were buried, you need to be okay with them because otherwise that guilt, shame, remorse will just keep coming up at different stages of your life. And then I know how to get rid of it. Just drink and do drugs, yeah. Escape. So I got to the way I've chosen to do it is yeah, put my story out there. And as well, another way to look at this is if I talk about all the negative things, so it helps people in a positive way to know that it's not all fun and games. Like addiction is fucking scary, and it's dangerous, and it's literally you'll end up in three places: death, institutions, or like hospitals, right? Like there's only just when you get to the point where it's bad, it's only going to end badly for you. Um, I lost my frame of mind there.
Like,
Uh,
talking about the 12 steps and like how
yeah,
it's like an ultimate sort of personal development tool, and how like it's a very serious thing and you have to take ownership, because I think that's the thing, mate. Like it's like everyone's problems are just like it's a spectrum, but ultimately it all comes back to like taking ownership, being able to look at yourself hard in the mirror and look at your flaws, look at the areas that you've not done the things that you said you were going to do that you've not lived up to. Because I had this chat with like a few clients recently that are going through different points of change and growth in their life, people that have had diagnoses, people that have had like trauma in their life. And I'll sometimes say like about the thing, I'll be like, look, there's this thing that's like the thing, like whether that's like an eating disorder, whether that's like past trauma, whether that's like a mental illness that someone is being diagnosed with, or something like an identity that someone's wearing, or like, right, this is a thing, but is this a thing problem or is this a you problem? Because a lot of folks sometimes attach everything to it's because of this and it's because of this and it's because of this. And it's like, what part are you playing in this right now? Like, what part are you intensifying?
100% you. It's 100% the individual and how they're processing life. Yeah. What I was going to say was yeah, if I'm open and honest and I don't those things that I was in the past, I'm only like it's only going to affect me negatively if I pick up again and go become that person. So I can talk about it. That's who I was. These are the dangerous things I did. But as long as John now, the person who is talking now and who I've been for the last 4 years, I don't lose him as long as I don't pick up. So reminding yourself of the past keeps me there. And also that I can let go of that guilt, shame, and remorse. But back to this point, yeah, like it's all us and how we deal with things. It's 100% us, yeah. And like how we perceive life and the vices and that which come into it. It's totally how we deal with it. It's 100% us here. So you've got to work within on yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say you just make it a you problem. Like make it a you problem every time, and
Yep.
then it's very rarely that it is. Like I always remember, like last year, start of last year, I was just going through like a bit of a tough time, and I kind of shared it with you, like with my mental health and pressure, and just like lots of different things, just life. Do you know what I mean? Like just like growing and going through different, like just a bit teething almost. I just call it teething, like just going through a point that I'd never been to. And I remember just being like, being so at the point where I was like, no, I'm aware of like, it's my thoughts and I just need to overcome this and I just need to do that. And I always remember that one of my really close mates, Chris, was like, mate, it's been hard. Like what everything that's happened, it's been hard, it's been challenging, it's been tough. And I always remember like, it was almost like he kind of gave me permission to actually be like, yeah, some shit has happened. So like, there is times that like you do have to acknowledge the external things that are happening in your life that maybe put you in the position you're in, but most of the time it's just like the writing's on the wall, like right in front of you with like what you need to do, and it's like this. You want the answer to be way more complex than it actually is, and I
Yeah.
think that's like probably why like when someone's in a place where they're maybe not, it's almost like saying that they're addicted to something or saying that they have a problem is like looking down the barrel of a gun almost, like in the sense that I don't want to admit this because it's too big a thing to admit. Like I always remember when Ailey admitted and said it out loud she had an eating disorder. And that was like, it was almost like her coming out that she had an addiction. I always remember it. I always remember where we were. It was like 2020. We're walking down past like a petrol station at like where we lived in Scotland. And she's just busting into tears. It's like, I've got an eating disorder. Like, but it had to be said
Yeah.
to then
Yeah.
be acted on because it's an addiction. Do you know what I mean? And it's a lot of folk are at like can't make progress until you make peace with where you're at. Do you know what I mean? Like you
Yeah,
can't.
most people are in denial. Most people know they know something's there, but they just don't want to admit it. And I do believe the way the world is changing now, it's not so taboo.
Yeah,
There's actually power in coming out and talking about it. Um, yeah, there's not a heap of stigma. Before I did my first rehab, there was heaps of stigma. I tried to hide it from people. Now, like when people reach out to me, I'm like, no, like you'd have to be open with this, and um, it's not that. It's only the stigma's gone with it. Like yeah, it's just the way the world is now, and thank God for that. It's sort of come this
it's
way.
quite an old school way of thinking, isn't it? Like we were talking about this the other day, like me, Ellie, and Grant, and we were chatting about how like the sort of old school way of thinking is like you get a job, you just get a house, you get a pension, you're fucking happy. Like you've got these things. Like why are you not happy? But like the walls could be crumbling down internally, and like folk would be like, no, but like you shouldn't feel like that because you have X, Y, or Z, or and I think there's just like I've spoken about this a lot of times. That there's just it's addiction's a spectrum, isn't it? Like someone could be in the position you were in, John, where they went to 15 rehabs and it took the 15th one, and like you've kind of spoke to me about before, like some of the points it got to, like car crashes, losing your job, like and that's the extreme end. And then you've got someone else that has to have a two glasses of wine every night, but like they're not drunk, they're functioning, but it's like they can't not do that because it's almost like they're self-medicating. Do you know what I mean? And that's like there's just levels, isn't there, to everything.
Yeah, I heard Steve, Steve-O, the Jackass guy.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I heard he's in recovery too, and I heard him speak about this, and I can definitely relate to what he said in this content I've seen. And he's like, thank God that I got my addiction was so bad it had to stop
Yeah,
because if it's not bad, and well, if it's bad enough where you're staying in it and you're having to use every day, and it's fucking with your mind and your relationships, but you're staying in this and you can't get out of it, and you're just in this rut of just unhappiness and I want to change, but I can't change. I can't get out of this. It's just like a hamster wheel, and it's all just negative, and it slowly gets worse and worse over years, decades. But fortunately for me as well, is it got so bad that it had to stop, or I would have died. And that's the truth. That's the reality of it, and the truth of it. So yeah, to stay in that, and I know so a lot of people like this where they just can't get out of it because it hasn't got quite bad enough,
yeah.
and they're
Dormant.
just missing out. They're missing out on life. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like I can still visualize in those early stages what that was like, and it was terrible. Going to work like hoping I'm not going to get piss tested, or I can't stop shaking, and like even yeah, like just turning up to work and like just not being able to function. Yeah, like it's and I would do that all the time and just yeah, it's just a shitty way to live.
Yeah.
Shitty way to live.
Sad as well, man, because it's a lot of folk are then when they've not got people around them that don't understand it, that's probably one of the hardest parts because it's like they're isolated and maybe they don't know how to articulate what they're struggling with. And then they tell someone and they're like, I think I've got a problem with alcohol. And then they're like, no, you don't. You don't have a problem with alcohol because their understanding of like what a problem is like I keep using the analogy of like Barney and Simpsons. Do you know what I mean? That's like lying in the gutter, that's like abusing alcohol, that's always sleeping in the on the pavement. And it's like not everyone has to be like that. It can be really, really it can hide in plain sight. And that's probably like, as you said, probably it's a shame because you can go your entire life going through, and it's just it's got control of you as well. So, no, I mean, I appreciate you sharing everything that you've been sharing as well. But what was like? Obviously, you mentioned like you went to your 15th rehab. You came out the back end of that. Like when I seen the pictures of you as well, John, like the one that you showed me, and then you see where you're at now. I actually could not believe that was you. Like the change, like in like where you were at. What was the initial toughest stages of recovery?
Uh, the first 3 months are tough. The first year is tough. And basically, if you can get to a year, you've got a really good shot at getting long-term sobriety. But in all the other rehabs, I would get out and I would last anywhere from 4 weeks to 3 months. And then I would pick up again because of amnesia. I just think I'd forget the problem I had. So the first 3 months is was tough. I had quite a quite a bit issues with like high cortisol, so much stress, getting that under control, and I had to use medication because anything like a bird flying over me and I would just be shaking. It was almost like really really bad PTSD type symptoms. It really was. I couldn't nightmares all night. But I got to that point where I surrendered. But yeah, those photos was like probably 100 kilos fat, really sick, really, really sick and unwell. So I'm glad that I was able to turn the tables with that. But I'd say the first 3 months is by far just the stress, and because my system was so messed up, it takes a good time to get back to homeostasis, so like equilibrium. So like because all your nervous system is up and down all the time from being suppressed, just really, really unstable. So the first 3 months are by far the toughest.
Yeah, mate, like I think so obviously we got cut off a bit there, but like one of the things that really stood out from me from the last time we were at the event was I asked you like what's your vice now? And it was
Oh
like
yeah,
I remember
food.
what I said, and you said food. And I don't know why I was surprised by that because like food's food, but like talk about that. Like what did you when you kind of said that, like what just so that folk can kind of understand what you meant there.
Yeah, so when I end up going went through my therapy, and I'm still in a way in therapy, I'll always will be, but you have to go back and look at who I am and what made me to get to the point I was at. And one of my first addictions would have been comfort eating. So that was when I was really little. And I sort of picked that up from my mum, watching her deal with stress, with the stuff that was happening at home when I was really little. So I used to see her up at late at night eating, and I didn't really understand it, but I picked up some of those behaviors, and I believe it was to deal with stress. And yeah, it actually got me quite big as a kid, which led me down a path of getting picked on, and then I found sport, and then exercise sort of took over that. So I replaced one with the other. But now, yeah, food. I can, especially when I deload and stuff like this, I use food as it's a bit of a tool, like a crutch, to make myself feel. Yeah. So and food's a chemical, so it makes
Yeah.
when you eat lots of carbs, it can make you feel good.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah, it's you look at the obesity sort of epidemic now, which is happening, and people are eating to feel essentially,
Yeah.
yeah, and like when they're not having those those high sugars and high sugar foods and stuff like this, they crash and then they eat again to feel good, and it's a bit
Yeah.
of a vicious cycle.
Yeah, it's something I regularly talk about to our clients because I'm like dead honest about it. Even like the other week, man, like when I couldn't run, got injured, went to Singapore because we went over for 2 days and we were talking to you. I could my right hip was locked, my ankle was like gubbed, and I was like, I can't do anything right now. Like I went to the gym and done like a bit of a full upper body like pump session that I could do, and the flight and the stuff made it a lot worse. Like going on there, like and when I got there, I actually said to Ailey, I noticed myself right now eating my emotions. Like I can actually, like, it wasn't out of control, but like, and I can relate to what you said about the deload as well. When I had those free events in October, I done the 10K, the gauntlet, and Hyrox Madrid within 3 weeks of each other. I got soft. Like I started like, because it's almost like I feel like a bit out of control, and I recognize it, but it's a never ending thing. Like you need to be so on top of it all the time.
Yeah, you
Um,
just have to be aware. And the good one of the positive things about exercise is actually a bit of an appetite suppressant. Just
yeah,
naturally it does that to you. So when I'm not doing anything, I just want to eat, and I'll eat more than when I'm in training. So, and it's just something I'm going to have to be conscious of when I get older. Um, but there are ways to sort of deal with it and combat it, and it just takes time. A lot of high level athletes suffer go through this process where I know a lot of swimmers in Australia, for example, they do their Olympics and they retire and then they're huge. And
yeah,
it's just like they keep eating, and it does multiple things. But awareness is key,
yeah.
essentially.
Hyrox is an endurance sport, isn't it? Like, so it's like I think sometimes folk forget that. I always remember you said that to me. It's like you're an endurance athlete first because it's like a bit of a switch you need to go through. And it's like I've done Ironman, extreme triathlon, these different things, and like anytime you came down from doing like the peak volume at the end, you end up a bit chunky after it because you're so used to going from like 15 to 20 hours a week to then down to like 7 hours a week. So I found that High Rocks, like, not saying that you need to train like this, but it's been really good for me because it means that I'm always in it. And I'm not like,
Yeah,
I'm not saying that I'm just using exercise as a crutch, but like it keeps me straight. It keeps me in flow, it keeps me dialed in. And I do notice when it does go, like I can feel it, like it affects me. And like I think
yeah,
it affects most folk, and I think it's quite good to hear that from even like a top of the fastest growing sport in the world, one of the guys at the top. It's like, yeah, still struggle with that. Do you know what I mean? It's like an area because I think people
yeah.
think it's going to go away.
No, it's just part of who we are. Yeah, but the good thing about Hyrox is when you look at these like marathon runners and the ultras and triathlons and all this is we do a lot of strength training, so that helps our metabolism stay active. Yeah. So when you just do an all endurance, I think your metabolism slows down a bit because that adaptation, you want to burn less energy over time. It makes you more efficient. So you want to that heart rate wants to be down. You want to that
Yeah.
fuel wants needs to go a long way. And because our sport, you need to be quite strong at the same time. Those muscles are getting worked. So I think it works perfectly, and this is why you see a lot of the top athletes and athletes in general with good physiques is because of the strength training and the endurance. So I think that keeps our metabolism quite high. So we have to keep eating quite a lot in training. But when you go out of it, those muscles are still quite full, and well, they're wanting more calories. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you've got a ridiculously high VO2 max and you've got a low muscle mass, you become like the most efficient person at maintaining energy. Like you
Well,
become
I've heard about
economic.
cyclists who their heart will stop at night time because they're so efficient and just they're not burning any energy and their heart will stop and they because it's just lowering so much. Yeah.
Mad, isn't it? It's
Yeah, it's just
absolutely
it's
mental.
so efficient.
Yeah, I've got a good question for you, mate. Because I actually it was Anya Culling. I don't know if you follow her. She's a British runner, and she in 2020, I think she done a 4:30 marathon, and she's now running like she's an elite runner now. She's down at like sub 2:30, and
Wow.
she won like Bermuda marathon recently. She's an incredible runner, and she got asked the question like, what separates a top 5% runner and a top 0.5% runner. And my question to you is what separates someone qualifying for Hyrox World Champs, being the top 2%, 1%, and going Elite 15? What separates them?
Off the top of my head, well, I guess there's a few variables there. I think your sporting background plays a huge part in how much you've right currently, like this year. Like it's going to change in 2, 3, 4 years' time when athletes have had more time in the sport. But I think your background has a huge play into people qualifying like this year. But it's the ability to be consistent and turn up. Like it's almost like it's a bit of a volume game now. Now that Hyrox has been around since what 2018, it's an athlete who's putting in the hours and is able to consistently keep turning up. Yeah, it's good, but it could be quite a few factors there. Yeah, it's the person who's putting the most in, um, and being consistently good rather than sometimes great. That
Yeah.
would be the easiest sort of answer.
Yeah, everything's just a volume game, isn't it? If you look at anyone like business, if you look at life, if you look at financials, if you look at sport, like I think what's quite transferable to me about Hyrox is that like you've got the skill base, but then actually it does become a game of volume. And if I look at any point,
It's going to become more like this. Who can do the most hours without being injured, but also uh, there's a level of like who you hear Hunter talk about this, yeah. Who can be putting out the highest power wattage for the longest time.
yeah,
So it's basically the person who can suffer and keep momentum in a lame term of saying, yeah, who can keep going without blowing up. Yeah.
going back to the point you were saying and to that point there, what's going through your head when you're blasting around that? Like when you were going around Vegas, like what's the internal dialogue like?
Um, so it's sort of changed over time. At the start, when I would race, I would have to pump myself up, and I use a lot of my experience and background to get me through things. Like, and I still do this a bit to a degree, but like I've done harder things than this. I honestly have. Like, I've done a selection course to be in special forces. Like that goes for a month. Like this 60 races is nothing. Now it's more of I need to stay relaxed, and that's just from experience that I can easily over push in those first couple of runs and stations and blow up. So basically now it's just I remain calm and I stay the safety side of the red zone, sort of, try to be lower than the threshold, but it's never really that when I look at my data. But it's always staying on the safe side until that sled pull, and then it's just try to just hold on. There is still is times when negativity can pop into my head, but it goes fast. I think everyone will, whether they're honest or not, something will pop in their head where it's like you don't have to do this, like, and that's the mind trying to stop yourself from being hurt. It's the mind's all about survival, and our human nature is to just like survive to the next day so we can reproduce or whatever. So as soon as that happens, I know it's just me trying to not hurt so much. But again, that acceptance comes into it. But yeah, basically, it's just try to remain calm. Yeah, not get caught up in the emotion, which I do really well at as of like the last sort of year, not getting caught up in the emotions of the race. So if you've watched me in the elite races, I'm always, if not the last into the ski erg, and then into the sled push, I'll be second last, and then into the sled pull, I might have climbed a position, but I'll be around that 13, and then I'm in the top 3, 4. That's
Yeah.
how my races go now. Yeah, and if I didn't stay composed, I wouldn't be in that position. I'd go out with those guys. I don't know if anyone's seen, but I think JK might have been the first one into the ski erg in Vegas, and he was 20 seconds ahead of me, I believe.
Yeah.
And in a race, you think I'm going like it's this big,
Yeah.
he can't run, like he's not going to be out in there. But literally 15 minutes later, I'm within a minute. Which I was in front of him this time, but I'll be within a minute of the front runners. Yeah, this time it was 30 seconds. So that's just a bit of experience and being an older guy now, especially in the field with
Yeah.
39 this year. Probably going to be one of the oldest if I can get the world champs.
Yeah, definitely. shifting. There's like a lot more people in their 20s now, isn't there? Like, because it was
Yeah, and
mostly
this was
dominated.
always going to happen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was mostly
more.
dominated by 30s. Now it's moving to kind of like not dominated, but like it's shifting now. You can see.
Yeah, and that's guys are got in younger, so their training age has increased. A younger guy, in theory, has a bit more, just a bit more youth on their side, right? But I had a good chat with Ryan Kent about this, and I reckon I've got a few more years in this because my running I started so late. I only started 3 years ago, so I can get my running down. Like my half marathon and my 10K and 5K and all that. I can keep that moving where a lot of the other guys have already had that running experience. So I think the older guys, in theory, like we've got a bit more resilience. And when you look at endurance athletes, your endurance can keep building well into your older age. But when you look at speed, like agility, power, those things you start to lose. But top end speed, I don't think so much. And Hyrox is not about being out of the blocks fast. It's just about a top end pace you can keep, but being strong. So I think we can keep doing it for a while, yeah. And I honestly think like I'm getting tougher as I get older and being able to handle more. But I just don't have that young blood in me anymore.
I think like the actual race itself, if you look at like the age, because I always remember I went to the event with can't remember his name again, came second last year at World Champs. Um, I've just literally forgotten his name. English guy, he came second at World Champs. I can't literally can't remember his name. I went to his seminar.
Sandy,
What's that?
Sandy.
Sandy, yeah, Sandy. Sorry, I literally like really good guy. Like, really loved his event and stuff. And he spoke about the sort of as like, what do you think for the future of the sport? The age? Do you think it's going to be people in their 30s? And he just was like straight off the bat, like 30s. Like he was like because of the mental resilience. Now, I don't think it just even goes for the race itself. I feel like it's the mental resilience to train to show like see what you said like the volume game like it really comes down to like we were talking about it the other week in a call. Where do your priorities lie, and what do you want? Because I seen Jake Drierdon talk about it in a YouTube, and he was basically saying like what it takes to go elite, and he was like, you sacrifice happiness, you sacrifice, and it's like the resilience doesn't even go into the race. The resilience goes into the fucking 15,
The
20,
grind.
or 25-hour weeks that you're doing those sessions that you're like, like I was saying to you, like my hip's been sore, my knee's been sore, you're like, man, my hip and knee is just sore. Like it's just fucking like it's just sore. And I
Hours a
have
month.
to, yeah, and it's you just have to persevere. And like I would probably say that like there's probably a lot of people that have the potential, that have the genetics, that have the sporting background to actually be up competing next to you and the guys at the top right now, but they lack the resilience in that area to do the work required to get to there. So there's a lot of variables, isn't there?
Yeah, there is variables, yeah. And I actually thought the same thing as Sandy. I'm like, when last season we looked around, we're like, we're all older blokes. We've been through the ringer. Yeah. Like we've been through some stuff. And but it's just changing just because of the training age and the younger guys coming through. Um, but yeah, man, it's the resilience. Can you keep turning up week after week and just keep working? And with a little bit of an injury, with not through winter, through summer, because it's all just stacking bricks, right? To use that analogy. Um, who can keep up, turning up and just going through that storm? Because it's hard, man. It's hard on the family. Oh, for me, but it's hard on my family. I'm out there at 4:35 in the morning. That's my first session done. I got strength training, and I did my conditioning. They're big days, stressful days,
Yeah.
and I'm putting more effort into it now because the competition is just getting tough. And that's good. It makes me get tougher, but it's the ability to do this week after week, month after month. Yeah. And an example last year was I got sick. It was actually after coming over to the event in Scotland, and that just getting sick then and not being able to train properly, it probably knocked me out for a month. That set me back so much. And I was lucky to get to the World Champs, that last chance qualifier. But something like that where I just missed, I was still training, but I couldn't go in a high intensity.
Yeah.
Like I lose all that momentum. Um, so just it's just being able to turn up and do that, and it's financially it costs. You got to sacrifice things, yeah. And I'm lucky that I've been through the things I have in life to know how to get through the storms. And just and that comes down to adversity and resilience. But yeah, man, it's the who can turn up and just keep battling that.
Yeah, no, it's because that it makes you question like when you get sick or you get an injury or you're looking at the pressure that's putting on. Like, let's say, for example, you're having a week where you're feeling a bit stressed and tired that you've got two kids. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've literally got a newborn and you're like sitting going, like, you then sit and you're looking at it going, like, is this weight? What's the cost and what's the, like,
Yeah,
is this
man.
worth it?
I still, yeah, I'm still going through this. Is it really worth it? I'm confident things are going to change in the next season, at least with sponsorships and stuff like that. So the burden gets released a little bit. That's why it's looking like heading anyway. But I often am questioning it. But as well, like I've probably got a couple years to still be elite. I'd like to be elite still at 40. I think that would be a good achievement. But just it's constant reevaluating, right? Because things change in life. I'm a little bit older as well. Like I'm not having like I'm going all in, almost all in. Like I've got kids, so I can't fully. That's just the reality. I've got other responsibilities I need to adhere to, but for these younger guys coming through who can go all in and they're going to get a sponsorship like these Red Bull and not all this, like it's looking good for them for their future.
Yeah, it is, man. Where do you see the future of the sport going?
I think it's going where everyone's predicting. I think it's like sort of you look at a lot of the talk about it, like it's good potential to overtake CrossFit. And that's purely you just look at the affiliate gyms. Like people are stepping away from that and they're going towards Hyrox because of the accessibility and people are enjoying running again. I think it's gonna go big. And after speaking with some of the top Hyrox guys, there's going to be more investment going into it because they're going to hit their goal of getting athletes at races in the next sort of 12 to 18 months, I believe. And once they hit that, there's going to be a lot more reinvestment into the media side of things. So then it was going to grow more and it's going to become more accessible to the public and they're going to know about it. So now there's like they're building the base to sort of explode.
Yeah.
That's how it was explained to me.
It's funny, like when you're in Europe, when you're in Spain, when you're in like Scotland, and you mentioned Hyrox, like pretty much everyone knows what it is. See, when you're here in Asia, even in gyms that are like built for it, you mentioned to some people and they're like, Hyrox? Like it's still not like they've still not fully clicked with it, or it's getting bigger in Asia now as well, but it's
Yeah, there's heaps more races in Asia now.
yeah,
Yeah, it's gonna go big. So
yeah.
hopefully I need to hold like look at holding on long enough that it explodes when I'm there and I can be one of the OGs.
Yeah, you are, man. You definitely are. I think as well, like we always say, when we were, it's biased to us because you coaches as well, but like we always say it, and I'm like, you're the underdog, man, like in the sport. Like, and it's not in a way that I'm like, but everyone's always like, it's such amazing things to say about you, but then it's almost like, I can't explain it. Like, there's been like some things that have came up, and I'm like, nah, John should be there, or like, you, like, even like what happened at like the world champs, man, weren't in the relay, and I was like, what the fuck, man? Like, why is he not in the relay?
Yeah. Look, this is the universe, man. Deals some cards which might be too favorable, but it is what it is, man.
Yeah,
I don't try to have too much resistance against that, but yeah, man. Like I listen to some commentators in this sport, like podcasts and that, and I've definitely got some respect, but a lot of people don't give me heaps of credit, I guess, and
yeah.
I have had some inconsistencies, I guess. Not a heap. The last season, I think I've been pretty bloody consistent.
Yeah.
Like I do think like in the top six, maybe top eight athlete
Yeah,
right now. It's tough to get this spot, right? It's just you need whoever, and this is the the truth is like whoever can turn up on the day of these races will will qualify, and it could the next day we could race and it will be different people. It's just
yeah,
who can essentially turn up on that day.
yeah. I know that like it's massively mine. Obviously, like you said to me a while ago, it's horses, it's not courses. Do you know what I mean? Like you go and it's
You
how
can
you.
see this too. You can
Yeah,
see this looking at the who's in the look at the times, who qualifies, and then look at when we race.
yeah.
And
What
now I found myself like out of the 15 again. So I'm going to have to look at racing in the next few weeks to get an opportunity to race there. And I'm confident these guys I can beat who have overtaken me. Yeah. And it's, yeah.
even some I've heard people. I don't know if you've heard people say this, but I think I've heard Hunter say it. I've heard a few other people say it, but it's like there's a difference between like competing and going for a PB, and it was basically like I've heard this, but like, can you explain that if you understand what's the difference in that when someone kind of talks about that?
Yeah. Like if like I did like when I raced Frankfurt, I was time trialing. I was going for, I needed to get this fast time. But and that's like I had Bo next to me and we actually pushed each other. It was probably one of my funnest races because we worked as a team
Yeah,
and we both got our qualifying spot. But when you're lining up on the line against the likes of Hunter and Sandy, Ronco, JK, it's different, man. Like this is not just I need to run fast as I can. Like I need to race smart, and I'm not. You got to race your own. Not get caught up into the motions of the race. Essentially, is the best way to put it.
yeah,
And on the grid is different to normal races,
yeah,
and as well you scrutinize to a high level. But literally, it's you're not time trialing. You're racing other guys, but you still need to essentially time trial. But there's just
yeah,
way more pressure, and you'll see any new guy who comes in and races, you'll see why they don't do too well, and and that especially in that first race is because they get caught up in the emotion of it, and they've got to go through that process of learning to stay within their limit.
yeah. I seen a Hunter talking about this as well in a vlog I watched, and it was just basically saying like, as like an athlete, you have to go through like almost like a bit of a maturity sort of like what you've just explained right there, like all the things you get caught up in and stuff. And I wouldn't like I've never even classed myself as an athlete. I always call myself an everyday athlete because like I've not even had an athletic background. Like I know like things are going good like athletically and stuff, but like I'm learning so much about myself. It's only been in the last like 2 years like I've actually went I could actually do well at something. Like I've always done things, but like I've went had to go through a bit of a paradigm shift to even think like that. So I can't even imagine what the amount of growth you have to go through. Like this is it's totally mindset, isn't it? Like it's so
Yeah,
much
man.
obviously
Like
physical.
it's like anything in life. Like you just it's to achieve anything great, it's tough.
Yeah,
And to go through that process, it turns you into like your character gets built
yeah,
in that process. Yeah. Um, yeah. I think you can go and become it. Calling yourself an athlete actually gives yourself a bit of pride, but there's something in this. Yeah. You can apply this to every walk of life, and that's I use my other skill sets in life and what I've been through to apply it to being an athlete again. And then when I go through my next stage in life, I'll be taking the tools and the traits I got from this into my next life. Yes, and part of aging and on this journey of life is just using everything we have and just using as we go forward. It's maturity and um, yeah, just more. What's the word? Um, yeah, just evolving essentially.
and when's your next race then?
So um, put the feelers out to possibly race Poland. So there'd be Katowice, I think it is.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, when I finished the race in Vegas, and then I heard the what happened in Maastricht. I think people, I think what like 10 people went under 58 minutes or something. Or 59 minutes, something like this. It was really fast, and it's historically really fast. So people obviously targeted that. It's pushed me down the list. But ideally, it would just be Glasgow, because racing is really stressful. It smashes the body. Um, so I'm going to see how things go over the next week, but I'd probably look at racing Poland to try and get a faster time.
yeah,
And yeah, and not that's a different race. How the mindset I'd have to race in an elite race. In that race, well, it's got to take a little bit of risk because I need a fast time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you done that last year when you went to Anaheim, wasn't it? That was the last minute sort of to get in and you qualified. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just decided my wife sort of encouraged me to do that. Went over and yeah, punched the ticket there. So going down to the wire, like I can do this. Like I don't let it affect me too much emotionally. And that's literally because of the shit I've been through in my past. Like this is just life. This is just one chapter I'm in. But yeah, I if I race Poland, ideally I need like a sub 56:40, which is doable. But then it depends how many of the Americans want to come over and who decides to race. But essentially, yeah, there's two shots left. If not, it'll be Barcelona, and that race will be hectic.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's
That's the
even
wild card one, isn't it? Yeah.
that's even a complete different one because it's like a normal race, but there's a lot of people, and it's quite dangerous because everyone's moving so fast with a lot of athletes. It's not 15. There's a lot. I think it's probably like 40. And getting caught up, and you got to be technically pretty decent
Yeah.
or flawless through it to not get caught up. Because I had some things happen when I raced Cologne, which didn't go my way. And those 15, 20 seconds over the course of the race is the difference between winning and fifth. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's literally. But we'll see how things go. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, mate, it's been awesome to have you on and chat, mate, and share your story. There's when I was kind of breaking down the questions and stuff for this and the sort of points I wanted to go over, there was so many different points I wanted to go through. I know that we've spoke about a lot of different things, but like the main thing I wanted like folk to see is like where you were at. 'Cause I feel that's pretty astonishing, mate, to believe that like you were in rehab in 2020 and actually like where you're at right now is like it just shows anyone that they can do anything that they put their mind to, man. So yeah, mate, it's been awesome to chat. Hopefully this actually worked as well if it didn't actually cut off the beginning of it, but I think it has recorded it. So we'll see. We'll see afterwards. If anyone's listening to this, you might be listening to half a podcast. But this one's more for like I put this question in here and it was just funny because I was like putting it in. I was like, it's more for our clients. What's it been like to coach me and Alien?
Uh, it's been great. Like so there's, and you know this, there's athletes um who do what you tell them and then or you give them the program and they adhere to it to like a T and like they do the best they can. And then there's people who generally they'll start really good and then you can just see what's happening over the period of time. And I've got to have more phone calls with them and chat to them more. And eventually, and they're really motivated at the start, but they can't stay the course.
Yeah,
You guys stay the course. This is who you are.
yeah,
You live and breathe it. So it's really easy to program and coach. Yeah, it's not hard at all. And I'd fall into that category as well. You give me something, I'll do it.
yeah.
And you're along on this journey as well. Yeah. And but yeah, you know, there's people who they just drift off and they just lose motivation and they cut off. And then in like 6 months they reach out again. It's like what's changed? What's changed in this
Yeah.
time, right?
I
Where
was remember you said that to me at the beginning. You're like, you were just like, mate, that's just hard, man. You just need to stay true to it. And I was like, I will, like, we'll do it. We'll just stick to it,
yeah.
man. So
And
it's,
that's just something about you, who you are in nature, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
and who how you carry yourself.
No, it's been good, mate. It's been ace. We're not going anywhere anytime soon. So you're stuck with this one. So cool, mate. But guys, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Obviously, if you're watching this back on YouTube, why the fuck are you not subscribed? Subscribe to the channel if you're watching this and you're not subscribed. And make sure that you follow Jon as well. It's Jon Wynn Fitness and Sobriety, isn't it, on Instagram?
Yep, correct.
So you can find Jon on there. But mate, thanks very much for coming on, guys, and I hope you
My
enjoyed the
pleasure.
episode. See you later. Goodbye.